Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to another episode of Retro Flashback, showcasing gaming's roots for a new generation. Today we are going to be taking a look at the first game in the Capcom Arcade Cabinet collection for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. You may have seen that the same day this video went up, a lengthy introduction video also went up, in which I talk about no individual games, but the entire collection as a whole. I'm not going to reiterate everything I said in that. Go back and check it if you want. If you're really into this stuff and are a real enthusiast for older arcade titles and these repackagings, I definitely recommend you go check it out. There are an incredible amount of options and customizability features in Capcom Arcade Cabinet that I think really make it stand out. And if you're debating whether or not you want to drop the kind of high price tag for either the individual games or the all-in-one pack for this collection, it's important to see what's there, because a good chunk of the value proposition, I think, is contained in those features, and it's really worth checking out. So if you have any interest in the collection as a whole, go check that out. But otherwise, we've got the first game in the series here for you guys to check out as well. I'm going to be doing videos of the entire Capcom Arcade Cabinet series over the next several weeks, and hope you guys are going to enjoy it. This is a pretty neat collection of some really good games. And the first one we are going to be checking out today is Vulgus. This is actually Capcom's first game. As far as I know, it's their first game, period, not just their first arcade game. And it is a vertical shmup that was released in 1984, and interestingly enough, ended up being published in North America by SNK. And, well, interesting how roles have shifted. Capcom has actually gone on to continue to be a very successful company. They are a big AAA mobile and arcade publisher to this day, and they're still very successful. And actually, even though the AAA industry is in kind of a pretty bad state right now, Capcom, despite money, and so they're continuing to go on, whereas SNK did hang on for a long time, but after the Neo Geo and a number of other major missteps, ended up going bankrupt and kind of got reincarnated, but is still a tiny shadow of its former self. So kind of funny how roles change throughout history. So yeah, this is not the best shmup in the world, but for the era, it's okay. It definitely has some similarities to shmups of the era, like Xevious, and not really Time Pilot, but I guess a little bit. It's very much a Xevious-like game. And there's not a lot of super detailed things to say about it. It plays fairly well. The controls are fairly tight, but there's no story to it. A lot of shmups try to this day, and I still don't know why, to put narratives in their games. You're this ship, that's what you do, which is fine. I like that. It's a score attack game, obviously. Basically every game in this collection is to some degree, because it was an arcade game, and that's how arcade games worked. So you have different types of enemies. Your goal is to kill as many of them as you can. Bigger, harder enemies yield bigger point payouts. And you have multiple kinds of weapons. Oof. It's also crazy hard, as you can tell. So you do have multiple kinds of weapons. You have your gun here, which you can either shoot manually, as I'm doing it, or you can have Capcom Arcade Cabinet configure it. You can configure an independent button for all. Generally don't like to play games that way, because you have that. You also have this bomb option, and the bomb option allows you to take out. Now, shmups are bombs in shmups are a very common thing. They're usually screen-clearing weapons, so they're designed so that if you get yourself into sort of a hairy situation, you use the bomb and it kills either everything on the screen or a certain chunk of the screen, and sort of saves you. The way the bomb works in this is, as you saw there, it goes out in a straight line, and it's designed to take out a group of enemies that are out with one bomb, the greater the score that you'll get. So, because it will, it will stack. So you probably saw it earlier though, when I hit that row of enemies, you know, the first one was 100, the second was 200, etc., and it will go up, deal with a larger group of enemies in a way. It's designed to maximize your score rather than to save your butt, which is really cool. I like that. I kind of like that mechanic of using bombs more. I mean, in games, especially like bullet hell shmups, I mean, in bullet hell shmups, you really have to have that option available to clear the screen to sort of save your bacon and give you a second to recuperate. But in a score attack game like, not an instant get out of jail free card, it's something that you also have to use strategically if you want to get its maximum effect. So there we go. I didn't use it great there, but you saw that I sort of got some extra point stacking from doing that. There we go. The game actually hands out a fairly decent number of bombs too. As you can see there in the bottom right, I've got quite a few, whereas most games, most shmups that have like a screen clearing bomb option will only give you 1 or 2. But you need him in this game too, because this game pulls no punches. You know, it's definitely not an easy shmup. The enemy AI in this is very, very aggressive. As you can see, it not only shoots at you and they don't move in predictable patterns, but they'll chase you. And that was pretty impressive for the time, to have not only the number of enemies on screen that this game does without any slowdown, but that they actually did have I mean, they were rudimentary behavior patterns, but nonetheless, they had behavior patterns. A lot of shmups are almost puzzle-like in the sense that every level is actually laid out the same way, and enemies behave the same way every time. So you can kind of memorize the pattern of a level and figure out how to min-max it, essentially. Whereas in this, the enemies all came in at the same place, but depending on your position on the screen and how effective you were being at dealing with them, things could get really, really hairy really quick, because they will follow you and they'll swarm you. And because your bomb only shoots directly out in front of you and doesn't actually clear the screen or clear a large group of enemies around you, it can get really, really tense, and you've got to be on top of it. You've got to move quickly, you've got to move strategically, you've got to be really, really smart about how you get through the levels and how you lead enemies on to make sure that you don't get swarmed and get screwed. So as you can see there, I transitioned from that planet I was on into space, I guess. That was a very, very quick atmospheric ascent, but now we've got kind of this weird star background. Looks a little weird. It almost looks a little bit like a matte painting or something, which is kind of strange, but it's not bad. It looks okay. The flicker is very, very weird. I don't know if that's the game itself or just the way that this package is displaying on my TV, but there's a weird flicker blur effect that maybe you can't see on the video. That's also probably because of the aspect ratio I'm playing this in, because this is a vertical game that I am playing on a horizontal screen. So, needless to say, I'm not really... Rotating a plasma TV on its side is not exactly easy, nor is it particularly good for it, so I don't really have the means to do that there. But you see here, it took me a little while, but I'm sort of starting to get the hang of this. So, it's... Oh, yeah. Take that. Yay! And I got one of my first achievements. So, I talked about this in my intro video, but every game in Capcom Arcade Cabinet does have a couple of achievements or trophies, if you're on PS3, associated with it. There are a few achievements that are usually related to accomplishing certain goals within every game within Capcom Arcade Cabinet, but each individual title also has achievements tied to it. I'm not sure... Hard to see what that is. That's the P. Okay. So, I don't actually know what that achievement was that I got. We'll go check it out. It might have been related to getting my first high score in the package as a whole. And so, as you see here, we can back up to the menu. We can get some options. Again, I talked about this in the intro. This game does have a full replay function. You have replays. You can save them. You can view them later. You can associate them to leaderboard entries as well, which is really cool. So yeah, this is actually just that was just an achievement for the whole package, which was just to set a high score. But there are achievements for each game, as you can see here as I'm scrolling through them. I'm curious what the Vulgus ones are. Vulgus. Oh, maybe there aren't any for Vulgus. That's weird. Huh, okay, well, whatever. So, that's kind of cool, and actually, no, let's just resume this back. So you have little things you can do with that, and also, as per my other video, this game does have a training mode, which allows you to basically start the game from certain levels. If you want to practice your way through certain levels, you can only start at levels that you have previously gotten to. So if you're playing this, oh yeah. So if you're playing this and you haven't gotten to the second level, for example, you won't be able to start at in training mode at the second level until you do. So it still requires you to earn your way through, but you can get the opportunity to practice in later levels if you want, which is kind of cool. There is also a casual mode, which basically is the equivalent of game genieing or hacking the code of the game in order to make it substantially easier. You can't earn achievements or post to leaderboards in that mode, so that's generally for only if you're messing about or if you're trying to show this to somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with arcade games and would be put off by the difficulty of these. But it's neat that it's there anyway. And there is also a score attack mode, which is a competitive leaderboard mode that you can compete in. You can associate replays with your required, as has been the case with many Xbox Live Arcade games, and in particular emulated older games on Xbox Live Arcade. There have been people who have managed to either cheat, exploit, or cheese their way into a completely unrealistically obtainable high score on the leaderboards, basically by cheating and by forcing the replay up. It basically keeps people. It not only allows the person to show off if they did it legitimately, but it keeps people honest. And if they didn't do it legitimately, the evidence will be there for all to see, which is very, very cool. I really like that. I wish more places did that. But you've seen most of what Vulgus has to offer here. It is an early 80s shmup, so it's not incredibly fast. It's not incredibly. It is fairly manic, actually, in that, you know, how nasty and nefarious the AI is. And it's definitely a challenging game. It's not the best shmup, but it's far from the worst. And considering this was Capcom's first effort, it's pretty darn good, actually. You know, as I said before, SNK put this game out in North America for Capcom, and you know, SNK did their fair share of shmups too. And this game is better made than a lot of SNK shmups at the time were, I would say. SNK was actually distributing a game that was superior to theirs in many ways, which is kind of amusing. And it's quite good. It's a nice entry into. It was a very good starting effort for Capcom, and it's a fairly reasonable shmup in its own right. I'm having fun with it, and I think people probably would. If you're someone who does enjoy this genre, you'll probably find things to like about it for sure. And this is actually one of the. So as I said in my intro as well, I'm not reviewing the games in Capcom Arcade Cabinet in the order they were released. I'm reviewing them in the order, well, released chronologically, I guess you could say, or the way that they were even released in the collection. I'm releasing them pretty much in the way that they appear in the menu. So these games are broken up into packs, and there's also an all-in-one pack. So if you want to see where this title came in the chronology of how they were released, I'll have a link in the description for this video to a Giant Bomb page that shows how they all came out. This was actually one of 2 bonus games that you only get if you buy either the all-in-one pack for Capcom Arcade Cabinet, or if you buy all the original 15 games either in packs or individually for the series. So you can't buy Vulgus, you can only get it if you kind of invest all in on Capcom Arcade Cabinet. So some of you may do that, some of you may not. As I talked in my intro video, the all-in-one pack is far and away the best way to buy this package. So that's what I would suggest you do if you're into it. But that's a matter of your decision there for sure. But this is a good game, and I think it's worth it. It's a very good bonus game for that package, in my opinion. But that is Vulgus, published and developed by Capcom in Japan, and published by SNK, at the time known as SNK Electronics, in the United States. And it is an arcade title. We are looking at the Capcom Arcade Cabinet version. Hope you guys enjoyed this. There's going to be a lot more of Capcom Arcade Cabinet coming in the coming weeks, and there's a lot to talk about. My name has been Parallax Abstraction. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.